All right, so the deployment is finished. Now, before we go ahead and check on the on the client PC whether we are not able to access now, I want to just give you a glimpse again of the sequence of the ACP and how important is that, and also how the L3, L4, and L7 rule is different in terms of the connection events. So, what in terms of these two set of rules, you may think that okay, we have the same source network in rule 1 and rule 2, and mostly all the other parameters are same except that the URL is here and the action is block and allow. So mostly we have created the similar rule but then changed a few things and the action. However, how it works is it will start from line number 1. It will check if this rule is being applied or not. So it will check the source IP. It will see if it is falling under this subnet. It will say that, yeah, hey, it's a match. Then it will check for the other L3, L4 parameters, the destination address, the port number, and all those. And then it would start checking the URL. But the thing to note here is that URL cannot be seen until the HTTP communication starts, right? Because from a core networking standpoint, or from an application layer perspective, the URL is seen only in the HTTP header, and HTTP communication only starts after the three-way handshake completes. And if it is an HTTPS connection, after the SSL handshake happens. So it has to wait until then, right? It has to allow initial few packets to reach to a point where it can look into the HTTP header to decide whether that URL has to be allowed or not. So in this case, you can see in the connection events that allow also is seen and block also is seen. The reason is because the Firepower system had to initially allow the three-way handshake to happen, and initially few packets had to pass through before it could actually realize that it's a URL which is supposed to be blocked, right? So you may see, and it's a very confusing and a contradicting scenario, that on the connection event, you would see both allow and block for such layer 7 rules. Okay, with that, let's go and check if this is working as expected. We will open a new browser because it might have cached some data. So we'll close this and this. Open a fresh browser.
Can you just maximize the screen?
I can try, but I don't know. There's some VMware setting itself which is not letting me do that. Yeah, it's better, right?
Yeah.
So we'll try to access facebook.com and we'll see if it is accessible. So it is still struggling to access. Probably it's going to be blocked, but meanwhile, let's see what we see in the connection events. So you can go to analysis, connections, and then events. Now you see here, there are allow actions. That's mostly for the DNS, so you can ignore that. But in fact, for the URLs, I can maybe scroll to the right to see the URL specifically. So when the web application was, Facebook, and the URL was facebook.com, which we have chosen under social network, we you can see the URL category. So this all is saved in the database. There is a centralized database by Cisco, which is being maintained, and it also updates that. So there is like URL database is separate, and then SI security intelligence database are separate, and those all gets timely updated over the internet on the FMC, and these categories also gets updated. So you can see just by seeing that it was facebook.com, we have not specifically blocked facebook.com, right? We have blocked this particular category. So the system already knows that facebook.com falls under social network category, and based on that, it took an action. And if you see here under the action column, it is a blocked traffic. You can see under action, it is blocked. And to see here, if you go back, it is still trying to load and it has not yet loaded. You can see here this is still rotating, and is possibly in the end gonna show us some sort of timeout or something. So it will not load. Can try for YouTube as well. Well, I won't be surprised if YouTube is still opening, because YouTube is sort of an application where a lot of other URLs also gets involved to load that. So let's see if it still works and loads. We'll have to do an application filtering to stop this. You can see it's partially loading, right? Except the JavaScript and all those. So yeah, that's when application filtering comes into use. So rather than just using URL, we would now use application filtering also.